Hey witches, welcome to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy, a magical living podcast for the busy witch. I'm Morgan, eclectic witch of almost 25 years, Avalon Priestess, and busy witch. Here we'll talk all things witchy, from current metaphysical happenings to my busy witch tips and tricks, and everything in the in-between. This podcast is my personal journey, filled with my knowledge, opinions, and unique way of looking at the world. Join me as I weave the magical and the mundane in every episode. Hey witches, welcome back to Busy, Gritty, Inked and Witchy. I am Morgan, and today I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. That is the truth. If there is a title for this podcast, it will have come after the podcast was recorded and I saw where it went. I am in a very interesting place right now that stems from a couple of different things that have happened lately, and then just the journey that I've been on for the last year. And at the moment, we're really slammed at work. And last week was one of the worst weeks of my life, I think. It was a really, really, really bad week. So I'm actually still playing catch up from last week. So I knew that I didn't want to skip the podcast again because I think I just skipped it a couple of weeks ago. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to sit down and start talking. Hit record first and then start talking. So I've had a couple of different ideas of the direction I wanted to head. And I literally I've had it lit like all morning, but I have a Divine Connection candle from our candle maker, Molly. This is one of her blends. Like, we don't sell this, but I got it because I love it. And I said, you know what? Whatever's supposed to happen today, let it happen. Let me say it. So that's what I'm going to do today. And for those watching on YouTube, my facial expressions, I'm sure, are hilarious. So I do want to start just a little bit to give you all an update. This was something I knew I wanted to do. Last week, I was sick one day, and then on Thursday, we said goodbye to our other dog, Aria. For those who have been listening for a while or who are followers of Ink Goddess Creations, we said goodbye to Jon Snow back in January. He died of lung cancer. Aria died and yes, it was Arya Stark. We had two Game of Thrones doggies. Aria died on Thursday the 12th. From heart failure. She was 11 years old. So, of course we took the day off. And to be honest, I'm still not, quite there yet. They called me this morning to say we could go pick up her paw print and her remains. And I'm like, well, that's just maybe going to have to sit there for another day or so because I don't know that I'm emotionally ready to do that. So yeah, essentially last week I lost 2 days of work, and this is the busy season already for us. So every day is pretty crucial. Plus we're planning a in-person event for Saturday, October 12th here in Tucson at our office called the Witches Bazaar. And it appears that event on Facebook has piqued the interest of Tucson locals to the point where we gain about 400 to 600 RSVPs a day since I put the event up. So I went from having this fear. I posted about this very quickly on I think Instagram the other day. I started out with this fear. This is our first in-person event. Okay. And I started out with this fear that no one was going to show up because we're not really huge into the Tucson witchy community. And while we have an amazing social media and online presence, my local presence is almost non-existent. So I'm a little hermit. I'm a little introvert. So putting on an in-person event was our way of, number one, getting to know the witchy community. Number two, getting to meet our customers, especially our local ones. And number three, just doing it because I like to do things like this every once in a while. So I went from having this fear that no one was going to show up to, oh shit, what if there's like a line? What if there's like so many people, like, oh my God, is this event going to even be good? You know? So it's been an amazing growth thing for me. And I think that's maybe the main thing that I would like to talk about today. I think I did pull some cards. I'm not going to lie. So I pulled some cards, and I have them sitting right here in front of me. So I pulled them from the Witching Hour Oracle, which we just got in. They'll be going up for sale on Saturday the 21st. But I got one for myself because I love the imagery. And so I was like, kind of cleared my head, like, what should I talk about today type thing. And I pulled the Book of Spells, which is all about learning. And then I pulled Seasons of the Witch, which was about honoring cycles. And that's kind of like the direction I was already planning on going on into for this podcast. And then the freaking Witch Hunter card, which is danger, like that fell out at the last minute. And basically that says that someone listening or watching hates me. And I'm like, cool. Because the reading I was doing was in conjunction with the podcast episode. Like, what could my podcast be about? Like, what could I talk about? That's what I was doing the reading for. So there was also like a different direction I was going to go into that I'm not going to go on it anymore because that card was like, woo. But I think the Seasons of the Witch, that's the name of our subscription box this month too. That's pretty cool. All right, anyway, sorry. About honoring cycles. I think that really is the direction I wanted to go into today anyway, and we'll just see what happens when it comes to what I'm going to talk about the last 9 months of transformation for me, because I think if there are times in my life that I look back to spiritual evolution for myself, and evolution is a word that I feel like in the metaphysical community can be overused or used in a really shitty way, to where you just saw me. If you're watching on YouTube, I just rolled my eyes because saying spiritual evolution it's being said by the wrong people. It's being said by the fake people. And so I don't like that. So what can we say? Spiritual, I mean, I guess I've undergone a spiritual transformation, but if I were to talk about the prominent forks in the road in my life where my spirituality became something that I focused on, or where my spirituality was forefront, okay, then I would say this year is one of them. I can definitely think back to my origin story when I was 16, 15. I never remember that. Like, I can remember the scenario like it happened yesterday, but I can never, let me see. I would have been 16 because I have to think about the situation and what was happening and where Colin and I were. Because for those of you who don't know, like, I married my high school sweetheart, but we dated when I was 15 and broke up when I was 16. And then we got back together when I was 17. So I was 16 at the time. So that, of course, being called a witch and deciding like, oh, well, if people are going to call me a witch, I might as well become one. That's definitely a pivotal spiritual moment in my life. Fast forward a little bit to us living in England. I have talked about that probably ad nauseum about that's when I really started to come into my beliefs as a pagan and as a witch, and I was really open to learning things, and I started my journey with the Avalonian tradition, and so that's a very pivotal spiritual moment in my life. Next would be when I owned my brick and mortar store in South Carolina. I was reading tarot. I was reading auras. I had a spirit guide that would talk to me nonstop. I was clairsentient, clairaudient, clairvoyant, all of that. And I think we're gonna skip. I think that's it. I think that would be so. I owned my brick and mortar store from 2005 until 2009. And we're going to skip from 2009 to 2024 as far as pivotal moments in my spiritual journey. Yeah, we're going to have to do that. So I think earlier, or it may have been this time last year, I finally decided to call myself an Avalonian Priestess. because I was trying to get the quote unquote certifications and the studies from all these people. And let me tell you, if we're going to be honest about things, I have an issue with people, small issue. I love people. I love the people who do this, but I'm not a fan of practices. I'm not a fan of charging $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to undergo a spiritual certification where at the end of it you can call yourself a priestess. I think if you're going to call yourself, I think if you feel like you're a fucking priestess, then call yourself a priestess. If you feel like you're a witch, call yourself a witch. If you feel like whatever you want to call yourself, if you feel like it, then fucking do it. It's not for me or you or anybody else to say. And I have an issue with people that charge 10, 20,000 or more for a 9-month program that at the end of it you will be a priestess. So I think once I came to that realization that I didn't need that. I was like, you know what? I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been a witch for 25 years. I've really followed the Avalonian tradition for 20 years. And the definition of a priestess is someone who is very devoted to their religion. They spread the word. They, live the way that pantheon or whatever would have lived. And I feel like I fit that criteria. And I have planned an Avalon podcast coming up here soon. Because I do want to do more. I do want to do more. Okay. But, I think if you want to call yourself a priestess, call yourself a priestess. So that was the first way that I kind of reclaimed myself starting last year. And it's actually when I recorded the new intro for the podcast, you can hear it there that I say I'm an Avalon Priestess. And it took a lot. It took a lot for me to say that. It took a lot for me to own that. And I'm still in an amazing study program with Mara Freeman, hers is not $20,000, so that's why I'm still continuing my Avalon studies. I'm continuing to deepen my Avalon studies. And there are some women out there who are charging for classes, but we're talking about beautiful women who, maybe they went the herbal Avalonian route. And so they're teaching an herbal Avalonian class for $500 or $600, but it's like a 6-month course or a year-long course. I don't have any problem with that. I'm not sitting here saying don't charge for your work. I'm saying I don't want to pay your house payment for you to just tell me that I'm a priestess at the end of it. I can kind of do that without your help, especially if I've been living this for 20 years. So that's a little tangent, I know. So anyway, this year alone, I've gone through not only a spiritual transformation, but a personal transformation as well. I may have now owned Inked Goddess Creations for, is it 11 years? 2013? That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. So I may have owned Inked Goddess Creations for 11 years now. And I may have been doing things with my face at the front of Inked Goddess Creations for a decade now. But it took until this year for me to truly accept the fact that I am the face of Inked Goddess Creations, because everything inside of me wants to hide. Everything inside of me wants to scream out loud and go bury myself underneath blankets on my bed. I am an introvert, but it's weird. I'm like an extroverted introvert. It's very strange, but it makes sense in my head. But showing my real self to the world is very hard for me, okay? Not only because of the witch wound that we all hold, which I learned about from Astrid Chaot, and we did an episode about it. I think I brought it up last week too, but go back a couple of episodes ago and look at that one or listen to that one. But also not only the witch wound, but just different ways that I was raised, different events that happened in my life that molded who I am today. Speaking up and being myself was not a way to go. Even if you look back at my origin story where there were some car accidents involved and everyone thought that I had caused them because I was very upset with the two people involved, and it was two separate car accidents. But everyone started calling me a witch. And at the time, this would have been 1997, small rural Virginia town. That was not a good thing, So I didn't even do anything. And here I was basically being burned at the stake by my peers. And that stigma kind of sticks with you. So being myself in public is not something that I am comfortable with. Okay. Now, for those of you who listen to this podcast, there is a really cool thing that I have realized over the last year. This year, in my coven, in the Ink Spirit Coven, and on this podcast, I am myself. I don't know if it's because I am literally sitting in my studio right now, staring at a little tiny pinhole, which is my webcam on my laptop, and talking into a microphone. But I'm myself when I'm on the podcast. So for those of you who've been listening, you all get the real me. For those of you in the Ink Spirit Coven, you all also get the real me. There is just something very comfortable about the coven. And people join because of me, which up until a few months ago, I would have probably never been able to admit. But those are the two places. Those are the two places in my professional life where I am 100% myself. Now, you all will get little glimpses of it in stories when I'm being what I call quirky. When I kind of pop in, sometimes there will be reels or TikToks that I will do, sometimes trending, sometimes not, where you get to see little glimpses of me. But for the most part, I hold myself back a lot. And I don't say what I want a lot. And this year in our business, it has been, oh my God, so transformational, okay? When you own a business, you have to pivot. You have to constantly renew yourself. And sometimes you have to undergo rebirths, because if you don't move with the times, if you don't move with the market, you'll lose them. And at the beginning of the year, a lot of small businesses that I was following on social media, I watched them close their doors one after the other. And it was heartbreaking to me. And then let me tell you, the last couple of years have not been great. Sales have steadily declined since the pandemic. I think a lot of businesses, especially those online, that were providing products to customers, we all saw an increase during the pandemic. We definitely did. We actually had to hire numerous people in 2020 and moving into 2021 because we couldn't do it ourselves. Like, everyone was at home. They were bored, stuck in the house, and the government was sending us money, So our business skyrocketed during the pandemic. And that's another thing that in personal circles, I will tell people. But to admit that to the public, because I understand how horrible the pandemic was. I understand what it did to the world as a whole. And I am not uncompassionate about that, or discompassionate, or whatever the word is, okay? In fact, I'm an empath, so I feel all of that, which is why I've held a lot of guilt for years over the fact that my business not only survived the pandemic, but it thrived because of the pandemic. And for that, I am extremely grateful, which is another very hard thing to say out loud, because it can be misconstrued, okay? So it was after the pandemic. So for the last 3 years, we are talking like steady downward slope. And it's taken a lot of small businesses. Not only has it taken a lot of small businesses, it has taken a lot of big businesses with it. Big businesses within the metaphysical community. And this is the part where I think the witch hunter card comes into play. This is, I think, the danger, because I thought about talking about this. And then I thought about, like, oh my God, like, do I really want to talk about this? And then I'm like, why don't you talk about it? You've never talked about it before. And so I constantly go through, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to do it because something tells me to do it. And I'm even ignoring the damn witch hunter danger card. All right, let's do it, because this episode is about my truth, which is another thing that I want to touch on very quickly. Everyone has to understand in the world, in any situation, there is never a truth. Okay? There is my truth. There is your truth. And then the truth lies somewhere in between. Okay? But we are all going to experience reality, and we are all going to experience experiences differently. Okay? So something like, for example, something I just said, the pandemic was absolutely horrible for the majority of people in this world, okay? For the world as a whole, it was a global pandemic. It was absolutely horrible. But in the pandemic, some people thrived. So it is all about perception. And that is a thing that my perception of a event is going to be different from your perception of an event. If something happens and there's two people involved, one person's perception of it is going to be different than the other person's perception. And neither one of them are wrong. Neither one of them are right. They each have their truth, and they can express their truth in it. And the reality of the situation is found somewhere in the middle. Okay. And that is 100% the truth. For me to be talking about, there is no truth, basically, or the truth is found in the middle of things. That is something you have to understand, okay? And this is just one of the weird, quirky ways that I look at the world, okay? So what I'm going to share with you all now is my truth over some situations. And yes, it corresponds to some things this year. So this year has seen the downfall. And just to throw in there too, I do say in the intro that I want to talk about current metaphysical happenings. And I think this falls under current metaphysical happenings. So it is podcast appropriate. Yeah. In the past year, this year specifically, we're seeing the downfall of two very large metaphysical businesses. Okay. I'm not going to actually mention them because one of them is super fucking Sue happy. Okay. Of these two businesses, one of them technically changed their model, their business model. And I think it was in maybe November of last year, stopped the current business model that they were at and pivoted to a different business model, but it has led to the of their business. Now, knowing some behind the scenes things that I know, the CEO retired in Bali. Must be nice, right? Anyway, I'm going to spill some tea today without spilling tea because like I said, I'm not going to tell you who I'm talking about, just because I really don't want to be sued. But I'm also sharing with you all my perception and my experience and my viewpoint of what's going on, okay? So you have that. You have that one big company who is on its way out. I'm not even sure what their model is anymore, but it's no longer a subscription box model. And they lost the trust of a lot of customers when they pivoted and they changed. The other one is probably, I think they peg themselves as the largest metaphysical online retailer. The crazy stuff happening at that company is all over Reddit, from employees and all kinds of stuff. It has been a shit show. It started out as a personal divorce thing, and it has just all over the place. I actually have personal, I guess relationships was a lack of a better word. I have personal experiences with both of these companies, okay? My personal experience of both of these companies from pre-pandemic times are not positive. Okay, so my perception and my perspective of these two huge companies from events that happened to me and my business are that these two businesses are not amazing businesses, or not run. Well, I don't know. I don't know where the miscommunication lied. I can say that. I don't know where the disconnect happened within either of these businesses. So I can't say for one, because one of them, I know the owner may have had nothing to do with it, the shit that happened to my company. The other one, I dealt with them through lawyers. So I don't know who I was dealing with. I know I was dealing with a lawyer. We had, for those just listening to the podcast, I'm having just a slight emotional reaction to the words that are getting ready to come out of my mouth, because it is something I have held inside for 7 years, 6 or 7 years now, because out of fear, out of just pure fucking fear. Okay. So, and this is my truth. This is my truth. This is what happened to my company. This is what happened to me. So I'm sharing my perspective. So we've had our subscription box since 2016, and somewhere in 2017 or 2018, that's where I get a little foggy on the dates. And it was called Magic Mail when we first launched. Somewhere around 2017, 2018, this other company changed the name of their subscription box to something extremely similar to Magic Mail. And I had a lawyer at the time, and I took it to him. I had a trademark lawyer, and we already had the trademark paperwork filed. And I said, do we have a case? And he said, we do. But I'm going to let you know, I've done a little research on this company, and they're very lawyer happy. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of figured. But there are posts all over the internet of this company wielding their power and how big they are onto a small businesses in a negative way, and they have a long history of it. So I said, you know what, if I can fight them, I'll stand up and I'll fight them. So we sent them a cease and desist through lawyers. And the next few months of my life were filled with utter fucking bullshit. And I got to see this company, I think, in the true light, because what is happening now to this company is those are the people I dealt with 7 years ago. Those are the same people. And the world just didn't get to see it until now, until all of their shit is public. The court documents are public. The suing of one person to another is public. It's all public. And it's a huge dumpster fire at the moment. And those are the people I dealt with 7 years ago. So that's what I can say. I don't know what is happening internally at that company. Okay? I don't have behind the scenes except for what you can read on Reddit or on Glassdoor, or just running a Google search for them and the word controversy. I don't have behind the scenes, but I know that the information I was given about them 7 years ago via lawyers completely matches the shit show that is happening right now, and on both sides of the shit show. Don't let anyone let you think, and this is just general life experience or life advice for you. Don't let anyone ever tell you that they are. Nope. Let me see how I want to phrase this. I will choose my words carefully. In some situations, there is no victim. I will say that. In some situations in life, both parties had to have done something in order for something to happen. Okay. For example, and I will say this, a business, this is my personal opinion just of having run a business for the last 11 years. Well, I mean, longer than that, because my first business opened in 2005. Okay. So I've been working on and off for myself for 19 years now. Okay. A business cannot be hostily taken over if the CEO of the business is performing their duties in a way that benefits the business and its employees. That is what I will say. So that's just a business tip for you in general. Okay, no one is going to hostily take over a business if the CEO is doing their job and is doing their job in a way that benefits the company and its employees. So there you go. That's my opinion on a general hostile takeover situation, not one specifically, just generally. But anyway, so this year has led to 2 huge businesses in the metaphysical community that were at a point where we've all taken a hit the last few years. Okay, we really have all taken a hit for the last few years. If you're so big, sometimes the hit you can't recover from, you know. Sometimes, like, we're a small business, so we're able to navigate the storm. We were able to, and I'm very grateful for that. And I need to find some. I have to go all the way over here. I've done this before, the knock on wood thing. I've had to go back to that wooden cabinet before. It comes around to renewing yourself, rebirthing yourself when it's necessary, facing your fears, facing the ways that you're sabotaging yourself. Because let me tell you, my own energy was keeping my business from growing. And whether it was fear over the minute that I became visible, other larger businesses tried to eat me like a shark, which happened more than once, to where I was like, you know what, fuck it, it's not worth it, I'm just gonna stay small. And I let that fear consume me, to not being open to receiving, to not being open to being myself, and not accepting myself for who I am and how far I've come in this life, or for being so scared to speak my truth because I was scared of offending somebody or being sued or losing a customer that didn't resonate with us to begin with. I've held myself back, and I think it's taken the shit that's been happening around me for the last year to make me realize who I am and how I was going to transform and how I needed to transform. And that's the journey that I've been on this year. And it has been a fucking roller coaster of extreme highs and extreme lows. And questioning, should I just go back into my little hole? I always thought about it like this, okay? Ain't Goddess Creations and the stuff that I'm doing, if you were to picture the entire metaphysical or witchy community as a whole, okay, as ocean, as there's an ocean, and there is. The internet is an ocean of other businesses, okay? And I had this little island in the ocean. I had this little island. And when people find my island, it's great. I love it. They're amazing. And when they find the island, they're like, oh my God, this island is cool. You know, and they stay for a while. And we have island drinks and we have island parties, and it's amazing. Okay. And some people find my island and they go, oh, I don't resonate with her at all. And they go to the next island. And I'm like, okay, bye. It was nice seeing you. Thank you for stopping by. I understand that we don't resonate. I get that. So that's the way I've been for years. And when you have these big, huge continents of businesses in this ocean that all of a sudden go, I want your island. Like, fuck off. Get off my island. You have a whole continent. Why do you want my island? And they're like, I want your island. It traumatizes you. I hate using that word, but that's what happens. You end up traumatized. And you end up deciding to stay on your little island and build a fucking fence around it so that no one can get onto the island and no one can get off. No, we let people off our island. It's fine. But I think that's where I've lived for years, is on my island. I don't give people a map. I don't tell you where we are. I don't speak up louder than a whisper because I've been so terrified that these fucking continents were going to come after me. And for a lot of you, I know that you might be thinking, oh, Morgan, there's, what about community over competition? And that exists to a certain point. But if you've never owned a business before, you may not understand that it doesn't exist. It exists for people who respect and who honor those around them. And it does not exist for those who do not respect and honor those around them. And unfortunately, I have dealt with businesses that do not honor and respect that. So therefore, I do not honor and respect them. Okay? So there is community over competition. Our Witches Bazaar is a prime example of that. We have 25 other vendors besides us that are going to be here for the day. Do some of the businesses that I invited personally to our Witches Bazaar to set up a table, do they sell the exact same things I do? Yeah, they do. Do they sell spell oils and herb mixes? And they sure do. But that's community over competition. They respect me. I respect them. And, the same goes for the coven. There's so many different covens out there. I don't hate any one of them. Until they give me a reason, until they try to take away mine. You know what I mean? And yeah. So that's the journey that I've been on this year. I don't know if I came full circle or not. I'm on a journey to face my fears. I'm on a journey to speak my mind. I'm on a journey to be myself, regardless of whether I am recording a podcast or teaching an Ink Spirit Coven lesson or doing a Facebook or not Facebook, YouTube live, because I don't do Facebook much anymore. Or whether you just see me on the street somewhere. And I've come a long way. And to be honest, this episode hopefully helped. We'll see if I get sued. Yeah. Anyway, that's the journey that I've been on. And I know I started out with a spiritual journey, but that is because I have come to realize that everything is intertwined, especially when you own a spiritual business like I do. So there is no separation between spiritual business and my life, because I am a witch. I own a witchy business. If my energy is low, we tend to have really low sales that day. If my energy is high, we tend to have amazing sales that day. There is such an energetic connection between myself and my business that going on a personal journey of exposure and facing my fears turns into a spiritual journey. It turns into me finally claiming that I am an Avalon Priestess. It turns into me realizing a big thing happened this weekend. I was trying to look at places in my life where I knew I wasn't showing up for myself. And I sat there and I was journaling. And I said, you know what? My witchy side, my Avalon side is feeling super fucking ignored right now. And I cried because I could feel that side of me, like I had been overcome with trying to get the business, trying to be the face of the business and do the things for the business that it needed to get us prepared for the busy season. And just having personal issues with my dog and my health. And then I'm always trying to be a wife. You know, I'm always trying to play all of these different roles and wear all of these different hats, that I could tell that my witchy side, my Avalonian Priestess side, had felt ignored. And it shouldn't be any surprise to me, because even last week I did an episode on how to get your witchy groove back. And that's one thing about the podcast, is I'm going to do something when I feel called to talk about it. And I think that's why today I felt called about talking about transformation and about looking at the parts of yourself where you feel ignored, and what can you learn from that? And are you living life the way that you want to? And are you living life in fear? Because I was so much. And I was going somewhere with this. I was like, at some point during this rambling episode, I'm going to hit I don't know what I was saying. Oh, fuck. Fuck. Okay. So anyway, spiritual transformation, that's where I'm at. It's a tie to my business. I am reclaiming my witchy self. Bam, I got back to it. My witchy self, my Avalon self, was ignored. And so I actually sat down this weekend and created a witchy life plan. That's what I wanted to do. And I shared it with a coaching group that I'm a part of right now, that's helping me make these transformations. And I shared it with the Ink Spirit Coven because it was just my reminder, you know. And some of the fun things on it, just to let you all know, were like, treat myself like a goddess. So I finally did my nails. If you're watching on YouTube, I have not done my nails in I don't know how long. I actually have a skincare routine now. Yeah, because I was like, well, I'm the face of my business. I should probably try and do something with that face. It was about getting back to Avalon, getting back to my spiritual studies, taking care of my body, taking care of my health, eating, healthy foods and working out and all of this. But it was a witchy life plan that was based on putting spirit first, my spirit first. And that's what I'm starting to do now, because I feel like that's what's needed in my life. And that's where I'm at my stage in the journey. Now that I'm facing my fear of exposure and facing my fear of being the face of my business and facing the fears of what happens if I say the thing, whatever it is. And I fucking said a lot on this podcast. So I will end by saying, if this podcast goes out, if you all are at this point in this podcast, not only did I ignore the Witch Hunter danger card, but I fucking took a huge leap in my personal transformation by saying the damn thing and sharing the damn story that has lived inside of me and festered, rotted for 7 years. It's a story that I only share with people when they come to work for me. Yeah. And people that I only share with those in my inner circle. So now it's out there. It's live. So if we get to this point, know that by me scheduling this to publish was a huge fucking step in my transformation and a huge release for me of just letting go and saying, fuck it, I'm tired of keeping all these opinions in. I'm tired of keeping all of this shit in. So here it is. So that's what I have for you all today. I want to thank you for listening. Like I said before, the podcast and the coven are the two places where I do feel like I am 100% my crazy ass self. So if you would love to join the coven, which is where I teach a lesson and a workshop every month, we're getting ready to do the oil blending workshop coming up where I'm going to teach all the members how I blend oil, how I've blended oil for 20 years now. And then we're going to continue. So next month, for the month of October, is Healing Your Witch Wound, which this is a huge part of. That is what I have spent the last year really diving down into, is my witch wound. And I'm living it right now. So if you would like to join, I'll give you $5 off your first month. The membership's only $30 a month anyway. So for everything you get a monthly workbook, you get a Facebook community full of witches who will support you on your journey. You get daily discussion questions, and then, access to me via the Facebook group. And then I teach a class and a workshop every month. But you can use the coupon code podcast5, and that's the number 5, to get $5 off your first month. And you can head to inkedspirit.com to learn more. And then this month's box is the Season of the Witch, which I think is really cool, because that's the second card that fell out of the deck when I was shuffling, was the Seasons of the Witch card. It's actually going fast. We did just figure out that we could create 45 more boxes. That's it, 45 more boxes, because we were on the verge of selling out now, which is the middle of September. So we were able to make 45 more boxes, but once we sell out of those, it's it. So it's really spooky stuff. It's spooky ooky. I love this box. It's very heavy on the witch aesthetic, the dark witch stuff, and it's all about the Season of the Witch, helping you pierce through the veil, all that kind of good stuff. So that's our Ink Goddess Creations box this month, and they are selling fast. So you can head to inkgoddesscreations.com to look at sneak peeks. You'll see like a little IGC box thing in the top. You can see some sneak peeks and order your box if they're not sold out. So I definitely want to thank you all for being here and for giving me a platform to share my knowledge, my opinions, help work through some shit sometimes, help me face my fears. And I hope that somewhere in the last 45 minutes, there was something that really resonated with you, because that was my goal with this, was let me just talk, and something I say will resonate with is something that somebody needed to hear. So thank you all for listening, and I will see you all again next week. Bye.